This is one of those movies that takes place almost entirely in one room, with really only one actor on screen too. And the premise is that, well, this guy comes running into a rest stop bathroom and locks himself in. He's obviously in distress and it seems like he's running from something. What he's running from and why is something you'll have to find out for yourself. But needless to say, he's not in a good spot and there's some tension and drama here. And he's trying to figure out what to do next and how to get out of this predicament he's gotten himself into. And well, this is a pretty simple and straightforward movie. There's not a whole lot of subplots or anything too complicated going on. But I will say there is a little bit of depth to it. It's not quite as simple as it might seem. So I have to give it credit there. It's not a poorly written movie from a story point of view. But I do feel like the premise was stretched a bit too thin here. I mean, it's only like a 90-minute movie, which isn't a lot, but still, there just wasn't much going on here. There really wasn't enough plot to keep it interesting and engaging for an hour and a half. Add to that the fact that a lot hinges on the central performance here, since the main guy played by Alexander Ristek is alone on screen most of the time. He's sort of the glue that keeps it all together and therefore he needs to be really, really good for this to work. And yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to call his performance bad. He's okay. But I don't think he's quite good enough to carry an entire movie on his own, which is essentially what's required of him here, and that's asking a lot of any actor. And as a whole, while I did like the way this thing was directed, and I really enjoyed the string and piano score here, I thought that worked very well. I couldn't help but to feel like I was watching a stage play. Because first of all, the bathroom didn't convince me, it looked like a purpose-built set. And funnily enough, I think that actually had a lot more to do with the lighting than the set itself. It was just way too evenly and well lit for a public rest stop bathroom. It also felt a bit too spacious, obviously so they would have some room to move around in there. So that was just a detail that kept me from getting too immersed. And the other thing was the dialogue. It just felt a little bit stiff and stage play. It didn't really feel spontaneous or natural, which also worked against the immersion. However, I will say that the story itself, while stretched a bit thin, did work. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but I feel like this whole thing was just very limited by the premise itself. There's not a ton you could do with this realistically, while still keeping it somewhat grounded and down to earth. You know, it's not like some high-concept sci-fi thriller, where the premise and the concept itself is intriguing enough to keep me engaged. So, you know, this thing had its issues and I definitely wouldn't say I loved it, but it wasn't terrible, and they probably did as good a job as they could have with the resources they had. Like, that's the thing with shoestring budget filmmaking. I tend to cut it some slack as long as it isn't just straight up incompetent or lazy, which I don't think this is. They definitely tried their best and put a lot of effort into it. And I do think R.D. Womack II, who wrote and directed this, has potential. Especially in the directorial department, he did a really good job here. And I wouldn't be opposed to watching another of his movies if he ever makes one. However, would I recommend this? Not really, but if it sounds interesting, maybe give it a peek. Or don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.